Now I would like to introduce Marc Jansen, because he's Dutch, we're not saying Jansen. He is not your typical HR guy. I mean, that's the thing. He is an economist by trade, and he's been exploring the world of learning and development for the past 5 years or so. And he's been leading, managing, and also being a part of very interesting projects. And now we're going to hear one of them.
Cool. Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me. How I'm going to follow that, we'll figure out. So I work for Booking.com, small little internet company that hopefully all of you have booked on. No peer pressure there. Booking.com is the address. What I want to do first is I want to provide a little bit of context of where we came from and where we've gone because of it, and kind of fundamentally the problem that we were trying to solve. So we're a data-driven company. And of course, everybody says that, and we talked about big data yesterday, but we don't do anything without data. To give you a very short example, we were founded actually in 1996 as bookings.nl. It was a Dutch website for Dutch people to book Dutch hotels. Well, there's 72,000 of those. That was quickly done. And there's only 16 million people in the Netherlands, so of course you want to expand. Well, most marketeers and strategists would say, well, you go to Rome, you go to London, you go to the big states because you want to expand too far, start small. What we actually just did was say, we're going international and watch what you type into our search box. And what ended up happening was the first international hotel was actually a small little hotel on the Dutch-German border. Why? Because that's where Dutch people go for long weekends. Follow the data, and you have your results. These aren't flight patterns. These are bookers booking hotels yesterday. So we follow the data. So again, a little bit of context and where we came in. So I joined Booking 5 years ago, like I said. Around that time, we had 3,000 employees. Today, we have 10,593. Next Monday, we have 353 starters. At our summer peak, we'll probably top out at 13,500 people. We've had year-over-year growth of around 30 to 40% from a headcount perspective. Rewind 5 years ago, we had 319 managers. As of this morning, we have 1,326. Our average manager is 4 years younger than our average employee. Our average manager has 9 months of practical experience managing people. Typically, those people are the people who they were colleagues with yesterday. So that's my reality. So while we had lots of programs along the way to help managers, it was really focused on, again, 4 years ago, very much still transactional management, in the sense that managers were promoted because they were the best doer of stuff. So account managers who were great account managers became senior account managers, which meant they still managed accounts, but managed some people on the side. Accountants became senior accountants, et cetera. You see this, and it was all across the board. Then we had this exponential growth, and we started actually seeing that a strategic imperative was getting managers to manage people and really make this transition from transactional management. Yes, you can go on vacation. Yes, your expense report is approved. That's your performance score for this quarter because we have to do some kind of calculation for a bonus for you, to really people management and getting that connection between managers and employees alive and well and ongoing on a daily basis. And what we did want to understand and fundamentally be able to articulate, better than I am now, is what do we want managers to do? What should they do? And sure, I could go to the Harvard Business Review top 10 books of leadership and management, and I could pull a lot of things out of there and say, this is what a manager should do. The problem is the culture at Booking is so strong, and we are so data-driven that for me to say to my leaders and say, well, this is what management is, where's the proof? Well, yeah, but lots of people read it on Harvard. Yeah, no, it's still opinion. So where's the data? So what we did is we did a huge exercise. It took us 6 months. We looked at every HR, people-related data that we could look at. We looked at turnover rates. We looked at engagement rates. We looked at performance. We looked at promotion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There wasn't a single factor that we could find that said this is what makes great managers of great teams. Again, we can't be opinion-based, so we have to be fact-based. So then what we just said is we went to the business and said, okay, you tell us who are your best managers and who are your worst managers. And we got a list of the good and the bad. And we had double-blind interviews with these individuals to really fundamentally understand what do you do as a manager. Again, I didn't know if they were good or bad. They didn't know if they were good or bad. It was a team of 6 of us. And fundamentally understand what do you do on a daily basis to help your people be the best that they can. And what came out of it wasn't rocket science. And to be quite honestly, I could have pulled it out of the Harvard Business Review list. But the thing is, it came from the people. And because our culture is so strong, that was critical. Because the moment I say, look, well, Amazon's doing this, or look, Google does this, who cares? Yes, we're in the same space, kind of, but it doesn't matter what they're doing because we're booking. So I'm going to quickly share those with you. Again, not rocket science. The first one's know your people. Duh. What makes them tick? What makes them individuals? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are their passions? What are their motivations? What makes them unique? And how can you use that to the best of your ability to make them better and make the company better? By the way, those are all actually booking employees. That's Darren. He's our CEO right there. That's Carlos. Carlos is an area manager in credit control down in Miami. Moved for us from the Netherlands to do that. Yes, good. We're 10,000, I still know all these people. That's good, good. That's actually Max Commodore. Max is a good story. Max was the first account manager for Booking.com in Amsterdam. He also helped us open the Moscow office, and now he heads up a new department called Accommodation Services. A good story about making steps in the company. Next one's grow your people. I know, you're all thinking, yes, I could tell you which book this comes out. No, it really comes from the people, I promise. Grow your people. You play an active role in their development. Development isn't just promotion. It's really building up skills. Next one, steer your team. And this is one of those which is a little tougher in the practicality of Booking.com because you have to look at our organization as a whole. Again, going back to the data, 50% of our workforce is customer service, making sure you as our bookers have the keys to the apartment that you want to rent or the castle, if that's what you're interested in renting. Making sure your credit card payment goes through properly, making sure you haven't been overcharged and everything. That's 50% of the organization. Of course, what we mean by steer your team for a customer service team leader in a call center, for instance here in Canary Wharf, is quite a bit different than what we mean for a developer who's also working on our website, but also steering a team of 3 or 4 people. So context is key as well. Next one, share your message. What do you want? What are your aspirations for the team? What are your aspirations for the individuals in your team? What do you want to accomplish? And at the end of the day, what are we fighting for? What do we wake up for on a daily basis to come and do for yourself and for the company? Next one is stay fluid. This is key, and this is really the strongest cultural component for booking that there is. I told you about the immense growth. What I also didn't tell you is that 5 years ago, we had 25 offices. Today, we have 179 offices, including 14 call centers, which on average have 350 to 375 individuals. We're ever changing, and things today we might go left and tomorrow we might go right, and it's up to our managers to really embrace that change, keep agile, and move the team forward. And the last one is embrace the big picture. And to be honest with you, within Booking.com, this is one that we still need managers to do even better. Because at the end of the day, for me, the biggest value add for managers is how they show people how their individual contributions help the overall contributions of the company. What am I as an individual fighting for today, and what's my impact? So that's all good and well. Now the question, of course, is what the heck do you do with it? what I didn't want to do is create a huge competency model, and some people say, yeah, but Mark, you've created a competency model. No, I get allergies from competency model. Why? Because we grow so quickly, I could have put together a 41-item competency model, would have taken me 9 months, and booking would have looked completely different at the end, and then I start all over. Keep it simple, keep it applicable, and you can go into depth in all of these to say, what does embrace the big picture look like for a CS team lead versus a senior account manager versus a senior accountant, et cetera. So you provide the framework and then give detail for specific roles. So what we did is we said, okay, continue with what we were doing, which was a lot of courses. So we were a very training-heavy company. Unfortunately, where training was used a lot of time as reward rather as development. We've really transitioned in the last 2 to 3 years to what I call a learning culture rather than a training culture. Don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean we put everything in e-learning and we train a heck of a lot less. No, we train more than ever, and we train more than ever on a headcount growth. So it's not just we train more because there's more people. No, we train more because it's important. But it doesn't stand on its own legs. We make sure it's fully integrated. And each one of these different things, I really call it a learning ecosystem. Each one of these things could stand on its own, but are more effective because we've coupled it to other things. So I'll walk you through it real quick. And again, what's key is the recipe, because that's the binding thing, right? That's the glue. That's what keeps it all together. That's what keeps it relevant for everyone. That's the framework that everyone's working within. So we do have our courses. We have everything from an introductory course, heck, even before the introductory course. If you want to be a manager, people have to understand management is not a proud promotion. It's about taking on a new role, which is significantly different than the role that you had as an individual contributor. So we actually have a course, which is a 6-week course, which people go through with themselves. We do some virtual classrooms along the way. But it's simply called, Is Management for Me? And it's meeting with for a 30-minute interview, and this is simple stuff. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. I'm just kind of gluing it together in a way that I think works the best, and my team thinks works the best. 30-minute interview with a manager who you really are impressed with on a daily basis. Could be your own, could be somebody else. Hey, tell me about your personal journey and becoming a manager. What were the things you ran into? What was really tough? What do you really appreciate about it? What are the payoffs for you? Talk with your own manager. Hey, tell me about your management journey. Every week, they come together again. So individual work, but collaborative work as well through virtual classrooms. Hey, what'd you learn? What really stuck out in your mind? And really using those virtual classrooms less for pushing content and more about really getting conversation to go, but more importantly, also create time for reflection. Because in a fast-paced environment like we work in, that's what we miss, is that reflection moment. And that's, I think, some of the most important learning that people can have. Really sitting and thinking, is this for me? Then we go through the fundamentals. We've got managing people, which is kind of our foundational course. What are the 7 imperative skills that we believe at Booking.com you need to have as a manager? This is the basics, gangs. This is feedback. This is also about your communication style. How do you come over to other people, et cetera, et cetera. Then we have something called managing performance, which is what does performance look like? How do we manage it? But more importantly, what's your role as a manager in that process? We have one called managing teams. This is really about how do you have level 4 contribution. So how do you contribute through other managers into other teams? Because right now the biggest challenge we have is really our middle managers. And these are people that 3 or 4 years ago were promoted from being functional experts into management roles, which we weren't able to capture early enough into this funnel through these fundamental courses. Yeah. We've got learning groups. What does that look like? So for instance, managing teams. That's 3 days with 8 weeks in between and 3 days. And what happens is on a weekly basis, you're focusing on one of the ingredients that you believe you struggle with the most. And on a weekly basis, you're doing a video blog, giving a 5-minute update on what are the things that you did this week to really focus on that. It sits within our video portal, although it sits in a private group, which is your learning group, which are the participants that went to that course together with you. And you can comment, and it's really easy because you use your iPhone and you shoot it, and the video's crap, but you know what? That makes it authentic. And really bad lighting, yeah, makes it really authentic. And because the barrier is so low for it, it's very easy for people to do, and they don't get nervous. Hey, I'm going to sit on the couch. Sometimes you see a beer or a glass of wine. And people really reflect and don't even realize the video camera's there anymore. And they have a dialogue about that. And then they come back after those 8 weeks and really have a go around, hey, what are the things that I accomplished in these last 8 weeks? And you know what? I realized that as long as I'm constantly thinking about these things, I'm making progress. And yes, I might not be the best manager after these 8 weeks, but you know what? I'm headed in the right direction, and I'm working on change. Self-development toolkit, that's something which is vendor assisted. This is available for all of our employees, but we usually use it really, really heavily to support all learning we have, but particularly for our managers. So you have to think of this as they're interconnected in really, really different ways. So quickly, I go to a foundational course. I'm in a learning group. By the way, I get a nudge. Nudges are emails that we send a couple days or a couple weeks after. Hey, Nigel, you went to managing people 3 weeks ago. Remember, the fundamental skill we focus on was feedback. This is how we give feedback at Booking.com. And by the way, if you want to know more or how other companies embrace feedback, click here, and it'll take you to an article in the Self-Development Toolkit. Ooh, there. Cool. Next, we do something called a recipe check. Recipe check is a 180 feedback tool that we do. We do it once a year. We do it in May. Every single employee is asked to provide anonymous feedback to their manager around quantitative questions related to the recipe, and then 3 simple open-ended questions. What are my manager's strongest strengths as a manager? What are the 3 pitfalls? And if there's one behavior you'd like to see your manager exhibit differently, what would it be? We crunch the numbers, and now I can do really cool stuff, because I can create profiles. And even though I have 1,300 different managers, there's 7 profiles of managers. So you might have people who are really, really good with making connections with their team members, but are really, really bad about holding people accountable. Well, what do we do then? We know your profile. We know where you're struggling. Well, then we say, you know what? You've got a personal development plan that's linked again to this self-development toolkit. So you see it coming back and coming back and coming back, and that's why I say this is really an ecosystem with what we've put together here. We also have skills modules. We have skills modules because we can't think of learning programs in linear fashion. Why? Because not every single manager starts on the same day. Not every manager is in the same phase of their career. So what do? We do skills modules. What's a skills module? Skills modules are skills that we need you to have at this moment because of something else that's happening within the business. So for instance, I'm a brand new manager. Performance reviews are coming up a month from now. I haven't been to the foundational course yet here. So what do? You get a nice email from my team that says, hey, we want to make sure you're set up for success. Because in 6 weeks' time, we're going to expect you to deliver performance reviews to your team. Come for a one-day session to talk about what's the process look like, and more importantly, how do you have that dialogue with your team? So it's about just-in-time learning, but you have to keep in mind, like I said, that's why I didn't draw lines, because it looks like chaos. You have all these things going on, but it's up to us to make order of that chaos by understanding fundamentally where are people in that journey, and how do you make that happen? So that's the ecosystem. Is it perfect? No. It's duct taped together. Right? Because that's done by a vendor, which they do really, really well. This is MailChimp. This is my team. That's an external. Those are 3 different external vendors that we use to provide these courses. Learning groups, that's on a video platform. But for the user and the learner, it's seamless. They have no idea that they're being bounced between 7 different systems. Why? Because everything's branded the same way, everything looks and feels the same way, and it really passes the smell test, which I mean, you know, if your milk is bad, you don't drink it immediately, you smell it. And if it smells okay, then you taste it. But everything we do for our learners, because of the dynamics of a company, has to pass the smell test. Is it working? God, I hope so. We do a once yearly employee engagement survey called the Your View survey. We do that in October of every year. We measure something which we call the management index. It's an index comprised of 12 different questions around again, back related to the management recipe. And you see, in 2012, when we started the project, we were sitting at a 75. And in the last 3 years, we've had a 6-point upswing. By the way, I'm correcting for new hires, because new hires in general are 4 points more positive about their manager than not. So this isn't artificial lift because I'm hiring so many people. No, I've taken that out. I'm looking at year-over-year responses from individuals. So yeah, we're heading in the direction. Is it perfect? Nope. We've got lots of work, lots of runway ahead of us. But it's heading in the right direction, and we hear it from our people too. Because it's no longer, I don't know where I stand with my manager, I don't get feedback. No, my manager's actively involved in my development. It's not just they support my development. All these critical things, managers are now top of mind, and that's really what this ecosystem is about, keeping it top of mind. Your role is, as a people manager, manage your people. And sure, you might do other work on the side, but fundamentally, your role is there for your people. Of course, you're going to ask me to boil it down to a couple sound bites. Here's the thing. These are the keys to success for me. Purpose. At the end of the day, what do you want people to do? And why do you want them to do it? And that's really what the management recipe is all about. Hey, these are the 6 fundamental things that we expect from you as a people manager at Booking.com. Reflecting on it now, it's still very top-down, and I want to flip it. So one of the things we'll be working on in the future is how do I get you as an employee of Booking.com to understand you must demand these things from your manager. And you know what? If you don't get it, you have the right to tell your manager, you know what? Yeah, you know me, but you know what? You're doing a poor job, excuse my French, piss poor job of helping me grow. I expect that from you. So that's a fundamental shift as well. Like I said, right now it's still top-down heavy. Next one is cultural fit. Please, 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 please. Don't just grab my 6 recipes. You're more than welcome to do it, but it's not going to work because it's got to fit your company. You know, there's a tool that we use for 360 feedback called Empraise, and basically it's kind of think of it as a Fitbit for feedback on the daily basis. It's a little app you can give feedback to one another. We get so many. We're kind of helping pilot and stuff. We have so many companies that say, oh yeah, that sounds fantastic, that's where we want to go. Okay, tell me about your performance review cycle. Yeah, it looks like this, this, and this. Oh, so managers, judge, jury, and executioner. Yeah, well, kind of. So why do you want this? Well, yeah, but people need feedback. Yeah, but if that feedback isn't incorporated into some form of performance management or development, why are you doing it? Your culture doesn't fit the tool. So same thing with this, make sure your framework fits your culture. Segmentation. Not all managers are made equally, nor do we expect them to do the same job. Understand that. Understand what they need. Don't create programs that are like ladders. Create programs that intertwine with one another, but are also, separate from one another. Because otherwise, if I'm a customer service team leader, I do a fantastic job, I have a specific need of skill set within that context, I'm not going to need to know about strategic leadership because I'm not going to use it. So don't create ladders. So don't have a course called Management 1 and a Management 2 and a Management 3 if you don't want 100% of your people to go to Management 3. Does that make sense? And the last one, keep it light. You know why? Because I'll tell you. This morning I've already got 73 emails in my inbox. I'm doing this. I've got a team of 12 people that I have to write annual reviews for. The last thing I want you to do is clutter my life up with more mandatory stuff. Keep it light, keep it relevant, use those nudges, help me along as a manager, support me as a manager, but also understand that I have 373 other things going on in my life. Make sure everything you do is linked back to that purpose and supports that purpose, because otherwise it's just stuff. Oops, I screwed it up. Oh, that was a nicer slide anyway. I'd be more than happy to take any questions if you have them.
Thank you. I mean, for both presentations, really inspiring content, and I think they're very much the sort of carrots we want for our organizations. And I think you touched upon it. How do you get people to actually demand it? And working in government, we've often looked at sticks, and we've created things like assessment centers for leadership, which is really good because it inspires people to actually want to get the promotion, so they start doing the behaviors. But you realize they become addicted to just ticking those boxes, and if you decide to remove the assessment center, their appetite for the learning disappears. So I was just wondering if anybody had the magic ingredient that gets people to actually be those demanding, self-improving managers who just want the best for their people for that sake, as opposed to just because the organization is telling them to.
Yeah, sure. No, it's one that we have as well, especially for managers who have been in the organization, let's say 3 or 4 years, who are used to, oh, I'll go to another training, oh, I'll go to another training. I think those are the people who struggle the most with this transition from a culture of training to a culture of learning. But what I would say there is their managers play a significant role in this as well. And that's what we don't do well enough. And so actually those nudges, all I'm doing is making managers look good in the sense that what's happening in the background as well is if I send Julian, who's a new manager, an email that says, hey, Julian, you learned about feedback 3 weeks ago, what happens in the background is a similar email goes to Julian's manager that says, hey, Julian went to managing people 3 weeks ago. Have you had a discussion with Julian about what he learned yet? When we were a small organization, things didn't fall through the cracks because there were enough people and we were linked well enough and small enough that other people would pick that stuff up. That's not happening now. So it's also coaching the managers of those managers in the process of what's your role within this process. We're starting to see that shift happen in different areas of the company at different speeds, but I think that takes care of that, some of that. You know, come to my program and I'll spend money training you. But a lot of times I think an hour with your manager a week will be a lot more effective in what you want to develop. And I think it's also helping managers to understand fundamentally what are you good at and what are you less good at and what's the best way, and I'm preaching to the choir here, right? What's the best way to help you cover that, what you're not good at? Too often times it's being outsourced to me, which is contradictory to one of our core values, which is we have a bias to insource. Look within yourself first as a manager and the role that you can play for your own managers before you come to my team. And it sounds kind of backwards because, you know, yes, I should be serving my population, but I'd much rather have them come to the self-realization of actually, I have a lot more skin in this game than Marc does. And Marc's probably going to tell me no anyway.
Hi. I have a question on the recipe check that you've mentioned just now. In terms of providing anonymous feedback to from the officers to the managers, how intensive is that? Is it similar to 360? And does that apply to all levels of managers?
So it's not a 360 because I only ask employees to give feedback on their own manager. It's available to every single employee. And the reason I say it's available to every single employee is because at the end of the day, I have 2 stakeholders. My first stakeholder is the company and doing what's best for the company. At the same time, I also need to be an advocate for my frontline employees, which means I have to be able to create a safe environment where they can provide feedback to their manager. We have a lot of managers that have no problem sitting in front of the team and saying, tell me what I'm good at and tell me what I'm rubbish at so I can work at it. The problem is because we're in 60 plus countries, there's quite a bit of a different feedback culture in those countries. So that's why I use this tool to do it. So basically, the rules of the engagement are this. Anyone who's in a team of 5 or more automatically gets a report on the feedback that their employees provide. By the way, I had an 83% response rate the last time we ran it. It's lower than I'd like to see it only because we see a 92% response rate year over year for our engagement survey. So I think there's still some work to do there. What was key, though, is it's only shared with the manager and their own manager. And why this is key is because then employees won't use it as I gotcha. This isn't about an axe to grind. You know what? Because HR doesn't read it. I'll be honest, I do read it. But it's because, no, but don't, so it's anonymized when I read it, but it's to protect the integrity of the tool. And I read it because I want to make sure people aren't misusing it. It doesn't do any good for a person to say, yeah, you're a effing donkey and I hate you. Right? And by the way, so we've run this 3 years now. There's only been one comment in those 3 years where I've said, not very chic, but I understand what you're trying to say. so employees understand it. They don't misuse it, and they really see it as a development tool. That feedback is not part of a performance appraisal, performance management system whatsoever. It is purely a development tool, which is then again linked to further resources to help develop that. By the way, for people who are in teams smaller than 5, because I want to be able to guarantee that it's anonymous, you're told as an employee when you go into that process, hey, you know what? You're in a team smaller than 5. I can't protect your anonymity. I can't guarantee it, but I don't want to take you the opportunity for you to provide feedback to your manager away from you. Am I okay to share your results in aggregate with your manager? By the way, last year, we had 1,500 employees who were asked that question. Only 5 said, don't share my feedback. I think that already goes to show that people are willing and want the opportunity to provide feedback to their manager. All I'm doing is facilitating and making it a safe process so they can do that, at least in a way where they feel there are no repercussions. And there aren't.